Hi, welcome back to my Substack. Today I'm going to be reading a blog post that I wrote all about the importance of focusing on what to add to our diet rather than focusing on what to take away. I know for a long time as a dietitian, my first 5 to 10 years, I was all about that what to limit, what to take away, what to reduce. And I've made a significant change over the past 10 to 15 years working with clients, also working with my own wellness and nutrition goals. The focus is more about what to add to my diet and what to add to my lifestyle to make it just a bit better and help myself feel better mentally and physically. All right, I will begin. So, as I just said, not about restriction. So don't worry. I'm not going to be telling you that you have to only buy organic foods and grass fed meats and all the things that only very few of us can actually afford, me not included. Instead, I'm going to help you see nutrition, health, and wellness not as something that you have to force upon yourself with micromanaged restrictions, but as something that you feel good about and that is sustainable and within reach, which is ironically the title of my book. Wellness and health have turned into this punishment, punitive, something we all fear and dread because we think we have to make all these major changes in order to achieve health and wellness. I like to think of wellness and health as a privilege, something we get to do. And by looking at it through the lens of what can I add to my diet to make it a bit better, this becomes less punitive and more of a fun challenge. Okay, so back when I first became a registered dietitian, like I said, I was very much a restrictive dietitian. I just had such a thrill restricting things from my own diet. It was kind of like a challenge, but a challenge that never ended and that I never won. I would tell people that I worked with, you really need to stop eating sugar or you need to stop eating all that added sugar and let's count it and make sure you're not getting too much and try to limit it as much as possible. Or you can't eat burgers or you can't eat pizza. Then I got a little older and realized that my tips were not helpful. It took a lot of self-reflecting and really living in the real world to realize this. Actually, my tips were often harmful. When I was young and life was easy, when I first became a dietitian, no financial stressors, or I should say minimal financial stressors, no kids, no huge responsibilities really other than to take care of myself and go to work. It was perhaps easier to limit certain foods and to be more strict about my own diet, although it was still not fun. And I think since it was quote unquote easier for me to do it, I didn't realize that when I was working with others who may have been older or who had more stressors going on in their life than I did at the time, that maybe it would be more difficult to have all these limitations and these restrictions on their lifestyle and their diet. So anyway, once my life really began and I had, more responsibilities, more things going on, I realized that actually all these restrictions and rules around eating were not realistic. And most importantly, they really weren't sustainable. And not to mention, there was very little pleasure in the way I was eating and the way I was living my life. And I had to reflect on, what does that mean about the people that I'm working with? And I want to be clear. I think I did a lot of great things as a dietitian in my first 10 years. I think I was a really great listener. And I really am still a great listener when it comes to my clients that I work one on one with. I don't think I was, this horrible dietitian that was all about restriction. But looking back, I know that I could have done things differently. So here are some examples of some not so helpful tips, a restrictive mindset, that are made into a more useful tip, a non-restrictive mindset. And these are just 3 examples. I probably could have thought of 100 more. Here's one. Don't eat pizza or burgers, right? So you need to completely eliminate pizza from your diet and burgers from your diet. Those are just 2 things that come top of mind, or French fries. Here's a better way of saying it. Pizza and burgers can be paired with a salad or other vegetables. What can you pair with? What could you add to a meal that is burger and or pizza, right? Consider adding vegetables to your pizza or adding vegetables to your burger. So pizza, olives, mushrooms, bell peppers, onions, burger, roasted red pepper, mushrooms, lettuce, tomato, onion. I know I'm harping on vegetables. So what if you don't like vegetables? Try fruit. What could you add in addition to that pizza or in addition to that burger? Or consider again modifying the food itself. So instead of using full fat cheese, maybe use a part skim mozzarella cheese or a leaner beef with not as much of that saturated fat. So a 94-6 versus an 80-20 or a 90-10, 90% lean, 10% fat, or using ground turkey or ground chicken. Those are just some options. I guess and if I say it like that, that is, more of a take this away, but it's not completely eliminating it. You're still enjoying the food and it's still hopefully very tasty, because that's the purpose is if you need to make modifications, make sure it's something that you're still enjoying and get some real satisfaction from. All right, another thing I hear a lot, and maybe I used to say in my past life, was cut out sugar. Either cut it out, or I don't think I ever said that to anyone. I think what I would really say is, you really need to make sure that you are reducing your sugar and watching it in everything you eat. And it was kind of a scary thing. You're like, oh my gosh, there's sugar everywhere. How do I do this? So here's the thing. Sugar is found in many nourishing foods, such as milk, yogurt, fruits, and vegetables. So maybe a better tip might be limiting added sugar. That could be a better focus. And this does not need to be micromanaged, as we will automatically eat less added sugar when we focus on adding more fresh, whole foods to our diet, such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and unprocessed proteins. So don't restrict added sugar, but instead add more whole foods, and automatically your added sugar intake will decrease. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So just by being more cognizant of adding in more of those fresh, whole fruits, vegetables, whole grains, etc., you'll have less room for that added sugar. All right. Another one is, here's one I hear a lot, especially recently with the ultra processed foods being in the news more. But I hear, avoid all processed foods. This is something actually I've never said to anyone, because I've always been a convenience food lover. So it would always, I don't think I would ever tell someone to avoid processed foods. But I've heard this a lot: avoid all processed foods. So imagine living a life where your goal was to avoid all processed foods. The stress from so much pressure would be enough to cancel out any potential benefits of avoiding these foods in the first place. I want to consider for a moment the actual benefits of processed foods. And when I say processed foods, I'm not really being clear between the difference between processed and ultra processed. I'm kind of talking about them all as a whole. Any food that isn't in their absolute most natural state. So whether it's frozen, or there's ingredients added, or it's been processed in another way, I'm kind of lumping these all together. So the benefits of processed foods: convenience, quick, easy. And when it comes to things like frozen meals, or, quick meals that you have to put in the microwave, whether it's shelf stable or not, it's almost always going to be a better choice than eating nothing at all. I have people tell me, I just don't know what to cook. I don't know what to make. I have no time. It's too much overwhelmed to even think about what to put together. This is where convenience foods can be so, so important. If you have convenience foods available to you, this will almost always be a better choice, a better decision than completely skipping the meal or a snack in the first place. Price. Convenience foods. I'm thinking mostly here, frozen meals, for example, is going to be almost always cheaper than eating out, for example. So if convenience for you is eating out, having convenience foods in the home will almost always be cheaper. And I shouldn't even say almost. It will always be cheaper. I guess I shouldn't say that, because there are some dollar value meals or whatnot, but almost always cheaper than eating out. Health. Okay. Again, I'm thinking of convenience, frozen meals, or meals that might be shelf stable that you can put in the microwave. Almost always better nutrition than eating out, because when it comes to eating out, you're generally going to be getting more fat and sodium than any even frozen meal that you can buy in a grocery store. So convenience foods have so many benefits. Convenience, in the name, price, and health. And when I say convenience foods, I'm talking about processed foods. Let me talk about some of my favorite processed products. And this is just a random list of some of my favorite products that I eat almost daily. And again, these kind of range from very ultra processed to very minimally processed, and they're in random order. But here are some of my favorites that I use daily in the form of I don't have time to make something. I'm going to use this instead. I'm really hungry. I need a snack. What can I grab from the pantry? What can I grab from the fridge? So one of my favorites are these Gutsy pouches. You can look them up on the internet. It's just like a squeezable pouch, which I'm honestly not a huge pouch fan, but these things for some reason are just, I find them delicious with, I think, 7 grams of fiber, all from fruits or vegetables. My favorite one is the yellow one and the red one, and I don't like the ones with added protein, but you might. So I don't want to taint what you might think of them. But I usually choose the ones that are not with extra protein. It's just the general Gutsy pouch with the fruits and the vegetables. String cheese. Triscuits are my favorite cracker of all time, either with some cheese or alone, honestly. Frosted mini wheats, favorite cereal. Frozen meals such as Kevin's, which can be frozen, or they can be also just found in the refrigerated section. Root berry is a new one that might not be available everywhere, but it's gluten-free and very, very tasty. Trader Joe's frozen meals are my favorite as well. And you know what? Aldi also has some really great frozen meals. Lentifuls, which actually it's either lentifuls or lentilfuls, but I think it's lentifuls. But it's just a cup of with lots of spices and seasonings added, and then dried lentils. You add water, you heat it up. It's like a bowl of lentils with so much flavor. They're just delicious. Yogurts such as Chobani and Skyr, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Kefir, which is similar to yogurt. It's just really a little bit more runny. It goes really well in a smoothie or just poured into a glass and drank with a straw. There's different flavors of those, but lots of good. It's a cultured product, so it's really good for your gut. Pre-marinated meats. I love these. So pre-marinated chicken or pork tenderloin that you buy at the grocery store and then you just put in the oven and heat up, and it's just so tender and full of flavor. And then lastly, you can't forget frozen fruits and vegetables. You can't get any more convenient than the frozen fruits and vegetables that are in the store these days. Okay, that said, that's kind of my list of favorite convenience/processed foods. What about my favorite foods to encourage adding to your diet? So this whole blog post is really about encouraging what to add to our diets rather than what to restrict. Because if there are foods that we need to limit, like sugar, added sugar, saturated fats in general, okay, that's fine. But we're going to have an easier time doing that. And it's going to be better for our mental health if we focus more on what to add to our diet to kind of crowd those out naturally. So here are some things that I like to encourage adding to diets. Avocados, nuts of all kind, mixed nuts, peanuts, pecans, walnuts, cashews, pistachios, seeds such as flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, berries, dark green vegetables, yogurt and kefir, cultured and fermented foods such as kimchi, pickles, and miso, beans of all kinds, meaning lentils, pinto, black beans, kidney beans, etc., chickpeas, chicken thigh and breast, ground chicken, turkey, poultry, and eggs. Those are some of my favorite things to really encourage just getting more of. And when I say eggs, I just like eggs in general as a great protein source. But of course, I don't want you to eat a ton of eggs every single day because they do have saturated fats in them. But an egg a day, such a great source of not only protein, but choline if you're pregnant, just a really all around healthy food. So yeah, that's my list of things that if you're like, what, I'm focused so much on what to reduce from my diet. Let's flip the script and talk about what can I add. And that list of foods that I just named off, and it's going to be listed there in the Substack, are some things that you can go to the store today and start adding as long as you like them. People will tell me, Gina, I really try so hard to like avocado, but I just can't like it. It is true that after a certain number of exposures, you might be more likely to actually enjoy something. But if you've tried it and tried it and tried it, there's other things that you can add to your diet that are healthy as well. You don't have to like avocados or kale or spinach. You can find other ways to get those same nutrients. Yeah. Okay, so all in all, when we focus on what to add to our diets rather than what to take away, there is more self compassion, less self punishment, less guilt, and less shame. So, what will you add to your diet or lifestyle today? If you want more ideas for quick and easy meals or pantry staples and ways to utilize convenience foods, all without restricting, check out my nourishment guide, which I've linked there in the Substack. All right, thanks so much for listening today, and keep adding those great foods to your diet. Have a wonderful day.